Hey, what's up guys? My name is Michael Westbrook. As always, thank you for watching. If you saw one of my recent videos, then you might remember that I recently built an 18-watt Plexi clone from Trinity Amps. Now, the preamp on this amp is closely modeled after the traditional Plexi circuit, but there's one main difference. It uses 6v6s in the power amp section as opposed to the traditional EL34s. If you haven't seen that build video, definitely check it out up here, or it's linked in the description below. The great thing about using 6v6s is that it drops the wattage down to 18 watts and it makes it a lot more manageable. But it raises the question, does it really sound like a Plexi? Today we're going to take a listen, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. I actually don't have a real Plexi to compare it to. I've used them on sessions and have some experience with them, as well as listening to tons of clips and classic recordings using Plexis. So I'm going to give you guys my thoughts, my experience with the amp, as well as these playing examples that you'll hear. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think? Does it sound like a real Plexi? All right, let's get into it. All the guitars were recorded using the Trinity Custom Plexi that I built. It is run into a 2-notes captor, and then I'm using my own personal speaker IRs. If you're interested in those, definitely check the links in the description below. Now, one difference between how the amp is now than as to how it was in the initial build video is that when I initially built it, I used a tube rectifier, a GZ34. This kind of browns out the sound a little more. It makes it a little softer. It compresses a little more. The solid state rectifier definitely makes it tighter. It makes it punchier. It seems faster and more direct feeling. And that definitely gives me more of what I remember from playing actual Plexis. Plexis are fast, they're immediate, they're super punchy, and the solid state rectifier in this amp definitely gives you more of that vibe. If you want to hear the amp with the tube rectifier, definitely check out the build videos. Another thing is that typically in the demos I'm making, I'm gently EQing things, I'm compressing things, I'm adding effects like reverb and delay, just to get them to sit in the mix nice, and just things that you would typically do when you're recording a song like that. Because of this, I wanted to let you guys hear kind of more of the raw sound of the amp. And so now we're going to take a listen to some just solo clips of me playing the amp. Now, these are recorded using the combo cab, and it has a greenback 16-ohm UK-made speaker in it. So this will kind of give you more of a feel of how the amp sounds by itself, just mic'd up. I've mic'd it up with a 57 and a Royer 121. And one thing I'm trying in this video that's a little different than what I typically do is that I have the 57 pan to the left and the Royer 121 pan to the right. This should give you a good overall feel for the sound, but then also if you want to just hear the 57, just listen to the left side. If you want to hear just the Royer 121, which is a ribbon mic, it's darker, it has some of that rich low end, then you can just listen to the right side. All right, let's take a listen. as I was building this amp and researching Marshalls and Plexis and all of that, I discovered there's whole forums dedicated to the intricacies of the Marshall Plexi and all the different versions. And I say that to say that this video probably isn't for those of you who really geek out about the specific components and specific values and all of that stuff. I love all that stuff as much as the next guy, but I'm really taking a look at this from a player's perspective. Something super practical. I'm getting the Marshall type sound in a lower wattage package, and I think this does a pretty good job at it. For the most part, channel 2 on this amp is pretty much like a 1959 Marshall Plexi. That's the model number, not necessarily the year of the Plexi. They were built much later than that. But there are a few different changes here and there. I'll kind of line those out in the description below. And then on channel 1, it's been borrowed from the 18-watt Marshall, just a volume and tone. It's definitely a little more vintagey sounding, a little darker, and you can jumper those channels and blend the two, which is really a great option. I think if you paired this amp head to head with an actual Plexi, you're gonna hear some differences. That's obvious. It's 6v6s compared to EL34s. I definitely think the EL34s have some mid-range grunt to them. Just some of that attack nature in that type of power amp tube that gives it part of the sound. It's part of the signature Plexi sound. But I can't say that I necessarily miss it when I play this amp. This amp sounds fantastic and I've been super happy with it. Again, the lower wattage is the biggest win for me. I'm getting that Plexi sound, that Plexi style, but in a much more manageable package. Overall though, I'm super satisfied with this amp. It sounds great and it gives me a different flavor. I've got Fender style, Vox style. I built a Tweed Deluxe as well. Check those videos out if you haven't seen them. You know, this is a very different flavor for me and I'm really digging it. It's taken me some getting used to though. Like Marshalls have this kind of brighter, attacky thing that they do, and I think if you're not used to that circuit when you initially play one, it's going to kind of feel weird. They're very immediate. They definitely lean on the brighter side, and that took me some getting used to because I typically really like darker amps. I can definitely see why the Marshall Les Paul thing is such an iconic combo. Those pair really well, the darker Les Paul with the bright attack of a Marshall, as well as the 412s. You know, a closed back 412 with a Marshall style amp really kind of gives it that low end girth to help combat the natural bright attackiness of the Marshall circuit. So, you know, I say all that to say that, you know, Marshalls might not be your thing, even though we've heard them on countless iconic records. And I've heard them for years, you know, all my life listening to those tones. When I first played one and when I first played a real Plexi, it kind of caught me off guard. It's definitely a different style amp than a lot of different, you know, than a lot of amps like a Fender or a Vox style. That's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up if you like this video. All right, until next time, I'll see you out there.